here he is. Here's the man himself. All right, let me get him in here and let's get this going. What's up, big dog? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on? Good to be here.
Good to be here with the Pharmacoy himself.
Yeah, I hope you're not concerned. This may mean you're under Thargelia by proxy.
Yeah, maybe.
You'll be
I've
losing. You'll be losing a lot of elite human capital from the Apollos.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the intellectual pagans are gonna take their ball and go home, I guess. So I don't know. I'm a little worried, but I feel like I'm already. They were already threatening to dox my priest in my church, so I feel like I'm kind of already on an unofficial sort of. I'm an unofficial kafir, so to speak. So
Closes a lot of doors to TikTok editors.
yeah, yeah, that's real. But how are you, man? It's good to see you. Good to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a hot minute. How you been?
Yeah, good. It's good to be on. You've kind of blown up since we last spoke, actually.
That's true. Yeah, I had to, step my game up a little bit. But, I mean, you have too, though. I mean, you've been doing great stuff with, your new organization and everything. The Substack's been doing good. So, I mean, I feel like we've both been, doing pretty well for ourselves. So, I thought it was a good time to maybe catch up again, especially with, we kind of have I guess, a mutual nemesis, uh, you know, and it's starting to leer his old head back up again. So, I don't know. I thought it'd be a good
Well, I
time to
was gonna
talk.
say. I was gonna say I go way back with the Apollos, but I mean, I think you were definitely logging Richard Spencer long before anyone else. So
Yeah.
I
Well, that's
got you
what
there.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's kind of interesting because like we both have very different experiences with Richard Spencer. You know what I mean? We're coming at this from two different angles, but I think we've at the end of the day come to this sort of same conclusion. Um, but I don't know. I just thought
Everyone
it'd be
gets
kind of
there in the
interesting.
end.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It just
All roads lead to Rome.
yeah, so true. But yeah, you just came out with a new article, which I want to say like is great. It takes a lot for me to even read a Substack, honestly. So, bravo to you to motivating me to actually read. I covered a little bit on stream, but like, I didn't want to read the whole thing because I actually wanted people just to go and check it out because it was honestly just a good read and surprisingly very funny. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought maybe we could talk about it a little bit if you're cool with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, like what?
I
So what?
was
I mean,
saving that up for 6 or 7 years, so
this pent up, yeah.
like a lot of bile in there. Trying to
Well,
sound as objective as possible.
I mean, you did. It didn't come because that's the thing. It's like it didn't come across as bitter, which is like I think the first good, tell it's a good piece. Unlike a lot of Spencer's stuff, which comes across as very like I don't know, sort of petulant and bitter to me, which it just doesn't really appeal to me. Like his criticism of Fishback, which like whatever. If you don't like Fishback, that's fine. Basil doesn't like Fishback, but I love Basil. We can disagree on that. But it's like when he was criticizing Fishback, it just sort of seemed like a weird jealousy. You know what I mean? So I don't
I mean,
know.
it's very weird with Spencer. I mean, he had an interview out with Ellie Reeve recently, or I guess it was the release for a book. People were posting some of the extracts from it. But, he told her he's, like, done with the racialist stuff, and I think he said that in another interview, he's, like, done with racism. He doesn't talk about Jews anymore. Like, so, I mean, clearly he's been consciously trying to, rebrand himself as more of a kind of moderate figure with Democrat endorsements and so on. But that's why it's really funny, when he finally produces some intellectual output that it's like the most low IQ anti-Semitism you can imagine. It's like Candace Owens says the Frankists have been in charge for 200 years, but like Spencer finally gives us some intellectual output, and it's like, no, the Jews have been in charge for 4,000 years, and it was actually before the Jews even existed. It was the proto-Jews. It's like, what? Like, this is not really the direction I thought he was going in, but
Yeah, I was really shocked by that too because I mean, like, dude, some of the stuff that he like say. Well, the my favorite thing that I think to come out of your article was when you went into the movie review stuff that he's been doing and like the Terminator 2 bit where he's like, yeah, it's actually Jesus versus Hitler. I mean, just reading like insane things into movies that are, I mean, as shallow as a puddle, as sort of some sort of like weird intellectual exercise that like the Jews have been sort of subconsciously inventing all of these like great blockbuster entertainments in order to teach people about like weird like esoteric Judaism. Like it's just like so bizarre on like so many different levels to me. Like reading like and obviously like I believe like there are like some sort of like there's esoteric symbolism and entertainment, sure, like whatever. But like what he's reading into it, it's like it's just ridiculous. Like or the Spider-Man connection where it's like, well, his name is Osborn, so therefore, all of these other conclusions must be true. It's like that's so retarded.
It's clearly based on a 19th century eugenicist. Yeah. And some of those examples as well. I mean, if you just, I didn't look into them that much, but I was just Googling some of them as I was reading through them. And it's like, well, they're like, it's such an odd choice that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be cast as Terminator. Why would a super intelligent AI be so conspicuous as to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? And then it's like, okay, well, what was Cameron's like stated reasoning for this? And then you look it up, and it's like he wasn't even earmarked for that role. Uh, Cameron was talking about this. He wanted it to be, the T-1000. In Terminator 2, I forget the actor's name, but the one that like transforms itself and it looks
Like
like
the
the regular
cop.
guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he wanted for the first one, and they actually had Schwarzenegger uh, coming in to play Kyle Reese, and then Schwarzenegger like spurred out for an hour about how a machine assassin would move in terms of like the muscular movements and so on. And then Cameron was so impressed by it, he decided to try him out as Terminator. So it's like right off the bat, you got this like interpretation about how this is like a esoteric presentation of 3,000 years of Jewish symbolism, and then you just Google one of the examples. It's like, oh no, actually, like he was the Terminator was actually meant to play Jesus in the role. So I guess that would have been Aryan esoteric moralization. But yeah, it's full of stuff like that. I mean, the thing is, I think like a lot of the Apolloist people were defending it, and I've kind of concluded I don't think they really realize what this stuff entails, like what they actually believe, because every defense of it is basically, oh, so you think that we shouldn't interpret cinema, or you think Jews don't put subversive messages in media. It's like obviously that's true, but their theory is that there's a universal symbolic language that's existed for multiple millennia since ancient Sumer, that Jews and what they call proto-Jews have passed on, consciously transmitted, and then present in media, mythology, and religion, and it's designed to manipulate racial development and select for certain traits in breeding, the kind of Jewish traits that they think they valorize. So this is like I said, this is like an insane multi-millennia conspiracy theory. It would have involved like thousands of people across multiple civilizations. It's the creation of Christianity, the creation of Norse paganism, even Celtic paganism, um, all modern Hollywood, comic books. I mean, pretty much everything. And the evidence for it is that Mark Brahman thinks that he has decoded these symbols which include, by the way, the number four. Right, this is one of the ways that he proves that the Tuatha De Danann, this is like a ancient pagan race in Irish mythology, and there's these annals of different races like invading Ireland and doing battle. And one of them is the Tuatha De Danann, which they say were Jewish because one Christian writers wrote this stuff down, and then they have the name Danann, and Dan is actually, we learn, a Jewish word, a Jewish symbol, a Jewish name. So characters with the name Daniel, like in The Shining, are also Jewish. Um, but then they also have the number four, right? The number four features prominently, and they say four is in Pythagoreanism, which is Proto-Jewish, and four is also featured prominently in the Torah. So four and the name Dan is used to prove that this group were a Proto-Jewish creation. So I think like very quickly you start to see the problem with this. If your claim is you've decoded this universal language, and like the symbols include the number four, snakes, clouds, fog, fire is a proto-Jewish symbol. But you kind of start to see the problem with trying to prove any of this exists.
Yeah, I mean this tends to be like what ends up happening. I've noticed with like online anti-Semitism is that they do a better job of like hyping the Jews up and selling them as this sort of like than like the Jews themselves will even do. Like they really build them up as this like just mythical class of wizards who can have been manipulating civilization for centuries, and it's like, well, then we cannot, if they're that smart, there's no way we're going to be able to stop them at that point. If this is like a 4,000-year-old conspiracy theory that they're all in on, sort of like the same thing with like the Candace Owens stuff. It's like her conspiracy theory involves like thousands of people all colluding and being on the same page regarding all that. It's like it's insane. There's no way that any of this is that accurate. And I think the funniest thing about the book too is the introduction of like trying to sell people on Apollon like Apollonians or whatever, where it's like no they constructed Apollonianism as like just a sort of like pragmatic sort of set of rules for people to live by. There was no mysticism, there was no spirituality involved in any of this, and it's like right off the rip, it's like okay, well you're this is just retarded. I'm sorry, like they were not doing this to sort of combat Christianity as like a sort of like pragmatic morality rule set for people. Like they were superstitious people, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I find so fascinating about it. Is it's like it's 90s internet atheists trying to LARP a religion for like purely kind of pragmatic social reasons. And then they kind of read this 90s atheism back into everything else. You know, they say it's just like in passing, they're like, well, obviously the ancients weren't superstitious enough to actually believe in the gods, right? This is something that was just left to the peasants. I mean, it's just like obviously so ridiculous. But yeah, they use this argument that anyone that would have first come up with a god must have done it consciously. So therefore, all religion is invented. And then, yeah, that they're going to invent a religion on the internet, like on a Substack, that they themselves openly don't believe. Like they don't believe in the existence of gods or souls or metaphysics or anything. It's just this kind of eugenic ideal. Like Apollo is meant to be this ideal of like kind of a Nordic, North European eugenic archetype that we should be moving towards, and that somehow people are going to take this up as a sincere religion, like they have with Christianity. And it's like, you know, I don't think that's how religions start. Like these guys talking about how they're going to like fool the masses into believing in their fake religion to implement eugenics, and you know, the founder of the religion, uh, he's not even doxxed. Like he doesn't even have his face out there. It's like an anonymous Twitter account,
Yeah,
Mark Brahman, on instead of blogs. So it's yeah, it's such a bizarre phenomenon. Like it could only exist on the internet. Well, that's why it's very funny to make fun of. I mean, it has become kind of the big joke of the week on Twitter, which I think is quite funny. I mean, I can't believe the kind of own goal that they were 10 years preparing this book, and within like 2 hours of its release, it just became the joke of the week. And they've somehow turned the entire narrative around this book and their thesis. If the thesis, the argument now is if I'm a bad person or not. You know, that's like the
yeah,
focus of the release of their book that they've been preparing for 10 years. So
yeah.
it's very like super villain. It's very like Disney villain. It's very like Marvel. Like you know, they're so close and then they fail because of their own hubris. Like you know,
Yeah.
they
It,
fail for some really stupid reason at the last hurdle.
fittingly enough, it's very like James Bond villain esque. You know, they've
Mm.
tied him up, and they're like, "We're just going to leave the room now and hope nothing bad happens." You know, like, and then he gets away. It's like, ah, well, nevertheless. Yeah, it's so funny, and I think it's funny too. It's like, could you imagine like if somebody was like a cult leader and they come up to you and they're trying to like sell you on this? Like, I don't. By the way, I don't believe in any of this, but you should still join my cult. You know, like, how does that even make sense? Like, it's so retarded. But
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I'm
know.
not sure how they imagine it spreading. I mean, I think they think they're going to influence culture makers and they're going to put it into media implicitly, and somehow we get from that to people worshiping Apollo. But I mean, it's a weird. It kind of reflects where things are. I mean, it's a weird. Like you could only have something like this in this kind of post-literate age. I mean, you have all these Apolloists that I think didn't really know about any of this stuff, or this weird REM theory, or that they're supposed to think that like European paganism is Jewish and all this kind of thing. Because like I think like 90% of the followers are just people that saw TikTok edits of Richard Spencer set to interstellar music, and that's kind of you kind of just join a movement on vibes now. But you know, there's
Yeah.
nothing else there, and at a certain point, like if there's nothing there intellectually, at some point you're going to be found out, which is happening now. You know, everyone serious is just kind of laughing at them, and they're the butt of the joke. So I don't know what that does to the vibes of Apolloism. I think it's pretty. It's becoming kind of a humiliation ritual if you have the sun emoji in your bio at this point.
It's a little dated too. That's the other thing. It's a little dated. We're still doing like the spinning sun in the Big 26. It's like I don't like I think what's funny about it too, and you mentioned the TikTok edits because this is real. That I feel like there's been this sort of like revisionist history happening about Spencer a little bit. Like people, I've seen people like going back and like posting clips from his old shows, like what was it, Heel Turn or the Gas Station or whatever,
Mhm.
and that whole crew and everything. and they would talk. It's like a clip of him talking about like the optics war and how like actually the optics war was really bad, and like in 26 you listen to it and it's like I kind of see like a slimmer of truth in that, but like I still think because I mean, granted, I was a belligerent in the optics wars back in the day, but it's like no, I still think we were pretty right to call out people like Matt Heimbach who were sleeping with their mother-in-laws in a trailer park and getting into fights. I just don't think that this sort of revision of history is like, well, Richard Spencer was actually really right all along, and now we, like he's Kurt Cobain or something, like we're discovering the genius of him after his prime. It sort of seems like that's like a narrative that they're trying to sell. It's like, well, no, it's like I can be graceful enough to understand that people can change and change their opinions, but like that doesn't negate any of the previous criticisms that I had of him, and honestly, I think he's repeating a lot of the same mistakes now, but people are just sort of viewing it in a different light. Do you kind of see that too?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I never disliked Spencer, and I used to show with him, and I always got on well with him. And then he did the typical Spencer thing he does. Like I kind of went my own way. We ended on good terms, and then he randomly attacks me and his former editor one day because I guess he wanted to establish in his mind that he burned the bridge. Right? We didn't leave him. It's kind of weird dynamic he has. But yeah, I mean the thing with Spencer, like he's intelligent and he's well spoken, he's charismatic, but I do think he's quite limited intellectually. Like I think this book kind of displays that he's not a very rigorous thinker. He'll do book clubs and he'll discuss Kant and Hegel, and then I've heard him like butcher those things when he tries to regurgitate it on streams. Like he clearly isn't really ingesting those things the way they're meant to be ingested. And for the most part, his philosophy, his worldview is still just a kind of basic Nietzscheanism. It has some he'll allude to kind of evolutionary psychology, and he kind of takes he takes a bit from everything. There's a bit of like background morality, there's a bit of Nietzscheanism, there's a bit of evo psych, but I don't think he's really a rigorous thinker, and I don't think he's really developed intellectually for the past few years. I think part of that is probably his own narcissism. I think there's a level of that with him and Mark, where they're both kind of convincing themselves that they uniquely have decoded all of these works. It's like, I don't know if you saw that debate Brahman had with Dyer, but it's like the funniest thing. He's like, Jay, I am the first one to decode your Bible. It's like, talk about setting yourself up for failure. He's saying that he's completed Nietzsche and he's decoded the Bible and he's decoded all of this stuff. They're the first people ever to discover that European paganism is Jewish. But it's like they actually believe this stuff. But I think he is suited to the kind of environment we're in now, where it is like people don't really read books, they don't really check these things. People are very much looking for vibes and looking for online communities to be a part of, and he is good at giving the presentation of someone who's intellectual and high class, and has a more sophisticated way of seeing things. But I think it's most impressive to midwits. And that's kind of the Apollos I've been arguing with are just so unimpressive. Like they're just dumb. They're actually, I wouldn't even call them midwits. Like these are actually just stupid people, and that seems to be pretty much every Apolloist. Spencer's probably the smartest of them. But yeah, I mean, as far as what you were saying about his history, I mean, the thing about Spencer is like he failed on his own terms. Like his Nietzschean way of evaluating things, and you look at his projects, and yeah, they pretty much all either failed because of terrible kind of tactical management by him, or he just dropped projects. There's been times where he was running webzines or publishers, and he just woke up one day and decided to can it and lay people off. Um, and sometimes, yeah, just his own limitations. Like this book is an example. Like anyone who is serious and has looked at this has picked apart a million holes in it. And even just the basic kind of effort that's needed. Like a lot of the Apollos were saying, "Oh, you just put it through AI and found like typos and spell mistakes." I only gave a couple of paragraphs talking about all the typographical errors because I didn't think it'd be fair to start listing all the spell mistakes. But it is like, you were 10 years working on this, right? And they're like, "Oh, you put it through AI and found 50 spell mistakes." It's like, well, couldn't he have done that? Like, couldn't he have ran this through Claude? Like, as soon as that was published, someone sent me a Claude PDF that had gone through looking for typos and stuff, and I think there was 50 typos, date errors. There was capitals mixed up. They got the release date of movies wrong. They got the release date of Indiana Jones wrong. They said someone was a screenwriter and he was a conscious master of gem because he wrote this movie. It turned out it was someone else with the same name. There's all these kinds of errors. I didn't put them in the article. I didn't want to just like list all the errors. But at the same time, it is like, okay, you guys are supposedly the elite human capital. This is a guy who's doing things differently. He's shown the low IQ anti-Semites and the idiot rightoids how it's done. And I think this is the first book he's co-authored. And yeah, it's a mess. It's riddled with mistakes. It needed a copy editor. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and you know, but people will continue to find him impressive. He'll continue to have his little cult following. But unfortunately, with these kind of destructive people, I think the same patterns kind of repeat again and again, which is why I was expecting this book to be a disaster.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. Like even in the book, they sort of preface it. Like there's like a premature cope. It's like, well, we know that this isn't structured as if it's an academic paper. It's like, well, then structure it like an academic paper. Then, like, what's the holdup? Like, this is your work that you're putting off into the word, and you're already like coping within like the first
Yeah,
few pages. It's like I'm supposed to take this
and they
seriously.
get out of it. They get out of it by comparing themselves to Nietzsche. They're like, yes, this isn't rigorous, and scholars may pick it apart, but like Nietzsche, we jump from peak to peak. But it's like Nietzsche was a university philologist, studied these texts very seriously. If he was, if like Nietzsche argued for a certain paradigm of interpreting culture, the Apollonian Dionysian split, and this is like, these are archetypes that repeat true art and true culture. But they're proposing something much more different. It's a sweeping historical theory that alleges a conspiracy theory across thousands of years. Like, I don't think it's good enough to say we've no evidence for a conspiracy theory, but Nietzsche wasn't big on using evidence either. It's like a totally different lane, right?
Yeah.
I think he wouldn't have mixed up BC and AD in his books either, which is something they do in this.
Yeah. I was, I'm just honestly reading part of it. And I was just expecting to see, I don't know, but I know, like
Yeah.
we're like this close from it. I mean, well, and what
Well,
you're
there is
saying
there's
too.
there's a paragraph I posted to Twitter. There's a paragraph where they say, well, okay, directors will often deny these messages are in there, and they may actually be unwittingly putting these messages in there because the broader culture influences them. I'm basically saying, like, you can't really prove any of these interpretations. What they say, and this was the funniest bit when I read it, they said, but the practitioner of REM, or this racial esoteric moralization thing, they have to interpret everything. The practitioner of REM will know he's correct because decoding these messages often gives one the feeling of solving a riddle. Right, so that's the entire test of truth for this theory that alleges like a 3,000-year-old conspiracy by Jews that to create all religion and all media.
Yeah, it's just a classic whodunit. That's all that it is. You just got to put together the riddle, put together the pieces, and that's what I hate too about this. It's like I'm a big film guy. I'm not as well read as you or any of these people when it comes to philosophy, and I can concede that. But when it comes to film, especially, I would say that's my area of expertise. Like I love classic cinema, like, and I really enjoy like good film critique, and that's why I was like kind of excited to go and explore some of Richard's like film reviews, and I'm like, these are garbage. Like they're just not it's like all of his film reviews. I feel like they're just talking past the work and sort of injecting his own sort
Yeah.
of like personal bias into it without even actually dissecting what's going on, except for like on a very surface level about like what this character's name is and what that means versus like versus any sort of like thematic or like a sort of trope that's being like played with in the work at all. It's like this may seem intellectual to midwits, but like to anybody else who actually enjoys art or culture, like this is just nonsense, like they infer so much, and it's one of those things too. Like where they're talking about like James Cameron. It's like I'm not going to say that James Cameron isn't like a smart person by any means. Clearly, like he's a very artistic person. I don't think he's reading like 4,000 years of like Jewish esoterica to inject into his films though. Like if you ever listen to an interview with him or like listen to him speak, it's like it doesn't really strike me as that's his area of expertise.
Yeah, Mark gives a big list in the book of people that he says are conscious masters of gem. Like, they actually understand this whole symbolic code that goes all the way back. And it's like every big Jewish director ever. It's like, Woody Allen and the Coen brothers, and then a bunch of Gentiles, and every comic book writer ever. And there's, again, zero proof for any of this. Like, I compared it to, Kevin McDonald wrote Culture Critique, and it's all this, it's like page after page of biographical detail of like, here's how Sigmund Freud considered himself Jewish. Here's how his Jewish identity was important to him. Here's how he was concerned about anti-Semitism, like letters, private conversations. And then here's how that influenced his work, that he came up with this theory as kind of a way to undermine Gentile society. It was like he understood that there was a huge burden of evidence on him to show that these people were thinking in the way he said. With this, like Mark lists like 60 people that are masters of gem, and he just continues. Like the evidence is that he sees the code in their films. They actually, I was kind of disappointed. They left out some of their best interpretations. They used to have the podcast back in the day. That was kind of first when I realized how insane Mark Brahman is. Is I listened to a couple of their film reviews. They left these out of the book, but one was 1917. You know the movie 1917.
Yeah,
Sam
yeah.
Mendes, I think, is Jewish, so he's a master of gem. But apparently, 1917 is about the Schofield Bible, right?
Oh,
Because the Schofield Bible was released in 1917. Why else would they name the movie 1917, right? I
nothing
think there
else
was a
was
character
important
in it
going
called
on.
Schofield as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but I think the best one, they did a review of Tenet, and apparently Christopher Nolan is also aware of this, but he's more of an aim guy than a gem guy, right? He's more
Okay.
he's kind of warning the Jews. So apparently Tenet was actually a movie warning the Jews about white genocide. So the message of Tenet is that you're going ahead with white genocide, but this may actually backfire if you go ahead with this too fast. That's the meaning of Tenet.
Oh, well, that explains why I hate that movie. I just didn't understand it, you know? I didn't know that it was
Yeah.
actually secretly about it wasn't Christopher Nolan just coming up with, like, a cool concept and something about, like, engines and motors. Like, no, 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 it's actually about white genocide. That makes sense. I need to rewatch it now. This may have, like, unlocked the whole thing for me.
Yeah, well, like James Cameron, yeah, you can definitely tell Christopher Nolan is a guy that like thinks deeply about Jewish symbolism and racial eugenics, and isn't just like an autist that really wants to get to use his 4K camera and get everything looking as spectacular as possible. He's definitely has an esoteric racial agenda.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not just chasing every technical achievement Oscar that he can get. No, it's about, like, warning the masses, actually. It's so fun. The comic book thing too is so funny. Well, because it's like what I find it funny too is that, like, there's a weird timing with this now because, like, Matt Walsh just came out with this, like, 30-minute review of, like, the new Spider-Man movie, and now Richard Spencer's sort of diving into, like, the origins of, like, Stan Lee and like, it's like I just feel like maybe I'm being, like, very reductive here, but it's like this is stuff made for kids. Like, I don't think that they're trying to teach children about um the Noahide laws or anything like that in Spider-Man. I just don't think that that's really happening. Like, there's something very, like, cringy to me. Like, I'm not even hating. If you like Spider-Man, whatever, as an adult, that's fine. Like, whatever, enjoy whatever you want. But there's something very like cringy about, like, grown men over intellectualizing a comic book about a guy in a suit that fights bad guys. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it's just not that deep.
Yeah,
But
that's Brahman. Brahman's big thing is comic books. He's a comic book guy that Spencer appointed as the intellectual leader of the new right. But yeah, I mean, and it's not like there's no basis for truth. I mean, again, like they always kind of do this thing where they shift the goalposts and are like, oh, so you think the Jews that wrote these comics didn't have any political message? Like, I do think like Superman is like
yeah.
a Jewish archetype, right? You do see this in the comics, like the X-Men as well. It's
Oh
clearly
yeah.
like they're the Jews and the non-mutants are the Gentiles. But again, it's a huge leap from that to like Aunt May is called May because it's Maya, and this is a callback to ancient Sumer and the symbolic language that was developed there. So yeah, it's all very schizophrenic. I mean, and the funny thing about it as well is like mentioning Nolan. The Odyssey came out a couple of months ago, and it's like if ever there was a movie that you might think Apolloists would critique, right? They're the real anti-Christian guys, and this movie has like a Christian message about overcoming guilt and forgiveness, and love thy neighbor. These kinds of it's very Christian messaging imposed on this, superficially pagan thing. It has the super diverse cast, right? It's got a Jew in there playing Agamemnon. It's got all this stuff. Spencer came out in favor of that movie because he said he was drawn to defend it because me and Martin Sellner were critiquing it and Matt Walsh. So it's like, I love the consistency of like they have to keep their system going, but he also has to really like counter signal the people on the right that he doesn't like. So somehow like the Odyssey gets in there as like a good movie, a pro white movie.
Yeah, that's so funny. I didn't even read his take on the Odyssey. That's so man, you really do like kind of live rent free in his head. That's kind of hilarious that he yeah, because I mean I like the Odyssey and I know you didn't and you had your critiques of it or whatever, but at least again when like I read your critiques, it's like, well, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I might not agree, that's fine. It is weird that Spencer would so boldly claim that he liked it though, just simply because he doesn't like you. Because yeah, like you said, it's I mean that is sort of the crux of the Odyssey is adapting it for a modern like Western Christian world essentially, right? So you would think that they would just be railing against it, but that's also just Spencer's contrarianism sort of coming out too, which
Mhm.
is I think sort of a deep character flaw that he has, where he'll sort of even stab himself in the leg in order to try to stick it to people he doesn't like.
Yeah, yeah, that's a constant. I mean, it's his beliefs are. I mean, people struggle sometimes to see how his beliefs are consistent, but again, like people with these narcissistic traits, like it's much more built up on his, like bolstering his own ego and kind of figuring out what he considers the high status position. Like so much of this, the text he's had the last few years, he just kind of wants to separate himself from like the MAGA rube, right? The idiot rightoid. And that really does motivate a lot of his stuff. But again, it's like he hasn't produced anything really intellectually for years now. I mean, like they do these book readings and the Apolloism thing, and like he'll, like I said, I think there were a few months studying Kant, and then he I saw him on a debate, and he said Kant proved that the universe is eternal, which like I won't go on a big spiel about philosophy, but basically like 101 of Immanuel Kant is like his magnum opus was called the Critique of Pure Reason. So the purpose of it was to show that with pure reason, you can't reason yourself to statements like the universe is eternal or the universe had a beginning or the soul is eternal. And it's this kind of agnostic's Bible. But Spencer, like they did like a 3-month book club on that. And his takeaway was that Kant proved this pure reason statement that the universe is eternal. So this is kind of the thing is I think he really struggles with any kind of rigorous thinking, which is why he goes back to Nietzschean aphorisms and just kind of the aesthetics of Nietzsche and empire and these kinds of things. But yeah, there isn't much there, and I mean most of the smarter people that have worked with him have at some point moved on. It's kind of incredible that I mean I would not have bet that he would stick with Brahmin this long. I mean that's one trait I find I kind of find admirable about him. It's like I think he attacked me at one point kind of to protect Brahman because Brahman at some point, like this goes way back, Brahman became convinced that I was running like an army of sock accounts to terrorize him and to undermine Apolloism. And this is why he started attacking me. He claimed that he discovered that I was behind sock accounts that were undermining Apolloism, and he began attacking me. And then shortly after, Spencer attacked me. So it's like, on some level, I do kind of respect that Spencer will like stick with his friend through it all, even though he's like the biggest lol cow in the scene.
Yeah.
That's like one admirable thing about him, maybe. Although it's probably for weird kind of reasons too, where they're kind of bolstering each other's egos. But yeah, he stuck true mark, true thick and thin, and this is the incredible intellectual fruits of it.
Yeah. I mean, was that so when that happened, was that part of when you became like a Kaffir to the when they issued the statement? Like where did that statement come from? Because I don't remember reading that, but when he issued the
You
fatwa on
know,
you for
yeah. So when I stopped streaming with Spencer in 2020, that was when Mark was becoming hostile, and I was just criticizing. I mean, I was just disagreeing with their takes on the time, like because a lot of it is just transparently stupid stuff. It's like
yeah.
you know, Platonism is Jewish because the idea of an eternal soul is Jewish, or the idea of forms is Jewish. Like this kind of weird circular reasoning. I was just disagreeing with some of that, and then he would I was kind of living rent free in his head. He started calling me a crypto Christian, which is kind of funny. Like they'll always have like someone who's like a crypto Jew or a crypto Christian or maybe a proto Christian as a way to like dismiss their critics, which is kind of funny. Um, but yeah, so we were on bad terms since then. But then it's 2023 when he declared the Tergelia. I don't think I was even back on my main account. I was on a sock account when we were all banned and Elon was slowly bringing people back, and I just came back on. And I can't even remember what we argued about at that time, but I guess I trolled him. But yeah, he came out with the Tergelia and he denied us access to him and Richard Spencer, which he said was going to end me like as an E-Celeb, that I'd just be finished if I couldn't have access to the Apolloists.
It
Yeah,
seems like
here
you've
we
been a
are.
lot better off actually. Like you got that was like right around it was like shortly after. It's like, so
Yeah, it's
I
funny how
don't
that
know.
happened.
There's a lesson there somewhere. I don't know, but no, that's so funny. I mean, Mark Brahman especially. Like I agree with your statement. Like I don't hate Spencer. Like I used to for sure. Like I definitely had like a lot of resentment for him. But like now, so yeah, I've kind of softened on him a lot. Just my own personal like growth and changes like a person. It's like, hey, I don't know. He's just kind of a silly guy. I don't find him so offensive anymore. But like, yeah, Mark Brahman's a fucking idiot. Like it's crazy to see like how it's sort of like Mark Brahman's sort of like watching a B movie, but somebody with like really earnest opinion, like they really earnestly want to make like this grand opus, and they just fail spectacularly on every level, and they have this sort of like hubris about their work, like there's something about that, like a lack of humility, and for him to speak so authoritatively about these things while being just completely wrong in almost every objective way, it's incredible, and like seeing him like talk about like when Nick talked the other night and did sort of like a little bit of a monologue or a response to what Spencer was saying about Fishback, and then he's like you don't he's like I don't know why Nick wants to wage this religious war. You're gonna lose all of the intellectual pagans. It's like what, like all five of you guys? Like I don't even, it's okay. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be all right. But there has been, and I think that this is. I think people are getting really bored right now. I mean, honestly, you could tell it's a slow news time because we're talking about Richard Spencer. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell there's really not a lot going on because we're talking about Spencer and Apollonianism. So but it is kind of a weird time in the dissident right as a
It's
whole
one of those.
because
It's like one of those recession indicators. It's like when your postman owns property. It's like a content recession indicator. It's like you start hearing his name.
yeah, it's so real, dude. Um, well, it's because it's like it is a weird time though in the dissident right too, because I feel like so many people are kind of like disillusioned with like the Jake Shields, Dan Blazarian, like low IQ crowd, and like I get it. Like I feel the burn a little bit too, sort of being surrounded by these people all the time, and then you have like the Candace Owens conspiracy theory stuff, and it almost feels like people are. I just, not that I think that this is happening by any means, but I just, there is like an opportunity for them to sort of siphon away from that to distinguish themselves as these sort of intellectual
Mhm.
types, and I guess I just sort of feel like it's sort of my duty to just remind them what the pecking order is a little bit, where it's like, look, you guys are fun and you're cute and I really enjoy what you're doing, but like let's not, sort of get it twisted here. It's like it is a LARP and that's fine, but because the I mean, again, I just didn't really like Spencer's critiques of like Fishback, like him coming in to try to critique Fishback. I think Fishback did fine. Like I think he did a good job, considering he's only been at this for like 8 months. It's like, and Spencer, you've been doing this for 10 years, and Fishback has like totally eclipsed you in terms of any sort of like political efficacy. So, like, for you to be so glib is like, I don't like his name, Fishback. That's very fishy. It's like, okay, like this is what we're doing. Like, it's fine, whatever. Take your jabs. Like I said, if you don't like Fishback, that's one thing. I don't care. But it's just, I mean, hollow critiques with vibe based critiques is kind of what it is. And then for him to sort of like double down and be
Mhm.
so animated about it, it's like, I mean, honestly, Spencer, like your greatest contribution to the dissonant right is like writing the playbook on what not to do. So I don't know. It's been a weird time.
Yeah, I mean, when I was beefing with them back then, it's like I didn't mention Apolloism or Spencer for the last 3 years because again, it's like no one, like at a certain point back then, it was kind of a smaller online scene, and we had kind of established that like Mark Brahman is a lol cow, Apolloism is retarded, Spencer is what he is. Like that was kind of established, but now it's like 3 years passes, and like I said, like people want something. They want something more than just critique, right? And there has been a lot of people have started calling themselves Apolloists because they like, Richard Spencer monologues. That's basically the extent of it. Or they like Star Wars edits with Richard Spencer's voice. So I do think it's important to put it out there again and show like, yeah, this stuff is a joke basically. And I think it's important to dunk it as well because these people are all vibes. It's all vibes and status. And Spencer presents a certain intellectual air. And like I said, people that follow that don't really, they don't really read or learn about any of this stuff. So they kind of just go off the vibes of the streamer. So I do think it's important to kind of, to some extent, to kind of humiliate them for these ideas, and show what a laughing stock it is, because not everyone is going to read like a 5,000 word review or their whatever it is 98,000 word book, but it's important to show like they can't really defend any of this, and if they get challenged on it, you get Mark Brahman declaring Tergilias and whatever else. I think it's important every now and then you have to give a reminder like that. And like you said, I mean, people, yeah, there's a lot of people that are sick of the Candace Owens stuff, the low IQ anti-Semitism. People definitely want something more, but like I'm kind of sick as well of the contrarianism trend. I mean, like I'm very sick of the Candace Owens types and the like you anti-Semitism, but there is like a midwit contrarianism that started a lot in the last few years of like, oh, we're actually Democrats, we're actually leftists, we're gonna be like aesthetically left wing, but we're gonna like sneak in some racialism in there. I think it's very kind of confused thinking. I don't know. Maybe part of it is just like the boredom of like we're 2 years into in the U.S. there's 2 years of a Trump administration. There isn't big political conflict happening right now. But I think a lot of it as well, like it seems to be coming from younger people that, like I said, came in through TikTok edits, and they just don't really have a grounding in any of this stuff of the kind of state of the political scene, and the existential enemy that is the left. So people are kind of, they like to experiment with intellectual trends now, and it's all vibes and edits, and let's make Richard Spencer king, right? This kind of thing. But there's a limit to it as well. Like, I mean, if you want to have a coherent movement, you have to have some kind of standard of like, evidence or establishing things rationally. And it's like if you're going to complain about, Candace Owens saying that she knows Israel was involved because she just knows it in her heart, and she doesn't know, no, but she knows. It's like you can't also say, I think uh, Nordic paganism is Jewish, and I've proved this theory because I had the feeling of solving a riddle, right? Like this is kind of a bad dynamic to have to choose from, right? Maybe we can establish some kind of standard to like keep charlatans out.
Yeah. Well, and going back to what you said about the leftist thing too, that because that is sort of that is a weird trend that's happened, and I think your points were totally correct about this sort of like boredom, but I also think too it's about like there is a sort of like isolation that what becomes being right wing like socially too, and I feel like it's sort of a like they will posit these sort of excuses as
Hmm.
I'm just exploring intellectually or I'm just trying to have fun. But like I do think like deep down it's more or less like they want the access to like the more social liberal world, but without having to like fully switch sides. Like they want to sort of have their cake and eat it too. They still want to engage with this sort of like culturally right wing sphere while still like having access to this sort of left wing sort of freedom, like lack of morality. Like I can sort of like do what I want and not have to face any sort of like consequences or repercussions. And I get that urge to a certain degree. It's like it sucks being right wing. It's not very fun. There's not a whole lot of hot goth baddies on our side, unfortunately. So we kind of have to suffer. There's a little bit of a drought of that over here, but I don't know. It's this. We've been in this a long time, and it's like I don't know. It's just sort of the price that you have to pay, the sacrifices that you have to make in order to stand up for what you believe in. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to theory sell about these things if you're, an online account. You can say, well, actually, I'm going to be like a Democrat, but I'm also going to believe in like Aryan racial eugenics and a massive Jewish conspiracy. But it's like, you can do all this kind of syncretism if you're on Twitter. But the problem there is just like a complete disconnect of the real world of like, go to your Democrat Party meeting and talk about the Apolloism stuff, and how you follow a religion started by Richard Spencer, and like see how that goes for building your political coalition, right? So there's just a disconnect in terms of trying to translate it into something larger. Like for politics, you need a base of people that broadly share your kind of moral premises and feel the same way on core issues. Which, I mean, right now is basically like immigration and identity. That's kind of supplanted economics. So it has no basis in reality to be like, well, I'm actually like an Apollonian Democrat, uh, you know, uh, pan galactic imperialist. It's like it doesn't translate anything. It's a Twitter handle.
Yeah, and it's never gonna result in anything meaningful too. Like I'm seeing like I got into a few arguments with these Apollonians or whatever, and they're sitting there arguing Richard Spencer's movie reviews have done more for the movement than Fishback's entire campaign. It's like at a certain point you're just like, okay, well you just like don't live in reality. Like there's no point in even like continuing this discussion with you if you think that like getting 10% of the vote, amassing like a national campaign, growing a large social media following is somehow less impressive than like Richard Spencer reviews Iron Man, like people like that. I mean, it is a good filter, I think, in a way. Like this stuff like this is good because it filters out the unserious people or the people that are just too,
Mhm.
clouded by, vibes and everything to sort of see what's like the objective reality. But it's like, I mean, uh, I don't know how people get to this point where like they're unironically arguing that. I mean, it's like the opposite of what Nick has built. It's like a cult of personality, but um, just for losers. Like, and I think that's almost by design. I think Spencer's sort of like speaking back to like his loyalty with Mark Brahman. It's like I think he sort of likes being the smartest guy in the room. I think he sort
Mhm.
of feels like threatened by people maybe like you or like people that he thinks will like intellectually challenge him. And I think that's where maybe like some of these sort of sneak shots of like at Nick have been coming from too, because it's been sort of happening for a little bit now. There's always been these sort of like sneak digs, nothing like super aggressive by any means, but there's been some subtle jabs, and I do think that because again, you look at his history, it's like he's always sort of surrounded himself, for the most part, with you know dumb people, for lack of a better word. Exceptions
I
to be made, of
remember
course.
do you remember do you remember that guy that he used to co-host a show with, and he had, like, mixed race kids? This is, like, real deep
Yes.
lore.
Well, oh, dude, what was
I
that
remember
guy's name?
he went on a debate with some was it, like, Donnie or something? It was, like, Ronnie or
Yeah,
Donnie,
yeah,
and he went on a debate, and he what was it? Do you remember that he made an argument? He was like, "Well, I'm not race mixing," 'cause he's like, "My wife is black." And it was something like, it was like she has cousins that are light skinned.
yes, yeah.
Do you
I
remember
had
this?
I had him on my show one time and had the debate with him about the same thing. I was like, "You have like a black girlfriend." He's like, "Oh, it's not race mixing because her brother did a DNA test and he was like 14% Irish or whatever, and he has blue eyes or something like that." It's like, okay, like what are we doing? That's a callback. Wow, that his name was like
Yeah.
Ronnie or something like
There's
that.
really there's some great lore from, like, kinda like the tail end of the alt-right days. Like, that Jay Dyer Brahman debate, I think, is just the funniest thing ever. 'Cause it's just, like, the contrast of, like, a guy who like, Jay is, like, a serious thinker. Like, I don't share his worldview, but he is, like, a serious thinker. Like, he understands how to, present a case and evidence and logic and so on. And then it's, like, Brahman who's like I have decoded your Bible, and it's like, what's the evidence that Genesis 30 is about race mixing? And he's like, well, it's obvious. Just all these great moments in this debate, but yeah, there was like a lot of the lol cows were kind of flushed away because with censorship and so on. I think it was kind of it made it more difficult to stick around. Like you had to have a more solid audience. You had to have something you were presenting and kind of be able to pump out content. So a lot of lolcows kind of disappeared, but now we're in like it's a fertile breeding ground for lolcows now. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's ripe. I mean, yeah. Ronnie Cameron was his name, by the way. I just remembered it. Ronnie Cameron. That was his name. The guy, the race mixer or whatever. But dude, there's so many good stories from back then. I mean, obviously, like I alluded to like the Matt Heimbach stuff or Chris Cantwell. I mean, a lot of like the post Charlottesville people. Um, uh, Mike Enoch. I guess they're still around, TRS and all them, but they've I guess again sort of like relegated themselves to irrelevancy after the National Justice Party thing. Although I've seen him like keep kind of like creeping back a little bit with like Doomer like as his sort of like surrogate
mm.
child. Um, but
Yeah, I mean, the direction they went is bizarre. I mean, I always got called a third worldist, and I was like, that's such a stupid term. It's just like if you're not like you know celebrating what Israel is doing, you're basically a third worldist, this kind of thing.
yeah.
But since seeing like the doomer not crowd of people, I'm like, yeah, like third worldism actually is a problem. Like this guy is like. It's like next level. It's like parody levels of third worldism. But yeah, I mean TRS again, it's this kind of thing where like you're in the right, you're not doing anything politically. Um, you're no threat to the left. Like you don't have any political vehicle, right? They had a political vehicle and they folded it because they said it was hurting their podcast numbers, that their podcast subscriptions went down. So they decided to cancel their political party. No one got refunded, by the way. But yeah, it's like you don't have a political party. You're not in opposition to the left. Like you just podcast, and so it's like all you can really do is just attack other people on the right. Like that's kind of the only content you have. It's like no one's going to listen to you complaining about Democrats or leftists for the thousandth time. So you start increasingly like siphoning yourself off from different segments on the right, and for them, there's kind of a cultish dynamic as well of like you have your collection of paid subscribers, and they kind of gave up on growth at a certain point. Like they gave up on spreading their message. So it's like you kind of just have to monetize what's left of the remaining audience.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is to differentiate yourself as much as possible and say everyone else is a bad actor, a fed, a rightoid, a closet Zionist except us. And that's kind of the direction they went as well. Very similar to Spencer. But TRS now are like, they're calling people anti-white for, who's the woman that died last year? George Floyd. What was her?
Oh,
The people
the
that were protesting ICE, they're like defending these people. They're like defending ICE protesters and
yeah.
the Lindsay Clancy protesters. I saw Enoch was defending those. It's just this weird kind of purity thing where you start like defining yourself, and a lot of it's bitterness as well. You start defining yourself against a group of enemies on the online right or the rest of the online right, and it just becomes this weird kind of purity signal over years, and you end up with some weird ideology that's like only understood by the people in your own audience. It is a very cultish dynamic.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, TRS, you could see the writing on the wall because they'd paywalled all of their content. Like everything was
Mhm.
paywalled at that point. So I mean, they had no reach. It limited their reach, and that was sort of the moment where, I mean, if you're a smart person, you'd be like, okay, so they're not really like concerned about growing. They're concerned about just like cashing in, essentially. Like this is like,
I remember, like again, I tried to stay friendly with these people. It's like, like you said, all roads lead to Rome. Like, you and Nick kind of immediately were like, okay, these people are trash. Like, I give people a chance. I kind of had to learn the hard way, right? But
yeah,
like Eric Stryker is always like making up stuff about me now, but he used to send me NJP stuff and ask me to share it. And sometimes I'd share it, just to help them out. But I remember like they sent like towards the end when they were clearly like just folding up and trying to get as much money as they could. They sent something, and it was like their latest activism. It was like two guys with signs or whatever, you know, anti-white on a sign. They're in like jeans and a polo shirt. But they sent me that, and the activism video was paywalled. So you had to you had to buy, and it wasn't even the TRS paywall. It was like an Odyssey paywall for another arm of them that covered the protest. So you had to buy an Odyssey paywall for like $7 to watch their protest, as well as your TRS subscription and your NJP subscription. It's like, what are we actually doing here? And then they
It-
would complain. They would be like, "Oh, our party isn't growing because no one shares us on Twitter." It's like, well, if you paywall your activism, it's like,
they should have offered a bundle, like they should have like Disney Plus, Hulu, like have like a little bundle service for all the different arms of activism that they were doing. I remember that when it was like I think it was like the dying days of the NJP. They were like really trying to go out and start doing like more IRL like protests and things like that. And I mean, they looked about how you would expect, about 20 people would show up with signs to protest some crime. That was the thing that killed me about them too. They would protest these crimes, and I'm like, I've never even heard of this case. This isn't like a national case. Like you're not even trying to like be on the pulse of anything. It's like
mhm.
some random like hate crime that in like Arkansas or something like that that's made no national news. I'm like, I don't even know what the details of this case are. Like, why do I care that you're out there protesting that?
Well, their plan was, they outlined this before. Their plan was, we're super censored on social media. And at this time, this is why they started attacking me. I was telling people, like, hey, it was when Musk took over, like, hey, we should all go on Twitter. Like, let's brigade this. Let's try and get our message out there. And they actually attacked me for that. And they were like, oh, it's like a Zionist control platform. And you're trying to get people away from doing real life activism. But, like the plan for their real life activism was like they gave up on spreading their message on social media. So they said they were going to protest these anti-white cases, and they said the mainstream media will then cover us. and people will have to pick a side. So they'll see, oh, these are the guys that are for like white civil rights and so on, and then they'll join us, and that's how we'll grow. But the problem is the media just completely ignores like five guys with a sign outside a courthouse, which they apparently had no plan B for if this happened, that the media would not actually care that there was like a handful of guys holding signs outside a court. So then they just blame the rest of the online right for not, shilling them and promoting them online. The people they've been attacking for years. So it's
Yeah.
again, it's like it's kind of topical in a way. It's this whole like, oh, we have to do something. Let's leave online and do something, and then you kind of circle back around, and the complaint about in real life super serious strategy was that they couldn't get any online reach. It's like, well,
Yeah. It reminds me of one time back home, back when I used to live in Paducah, Patriot Front actually came to Paducah to like protest some case, and they came on like a Sunday night when they went and protested in front of the courthouse, which is like not even near anything. It's like sort of downtown, but like 5 blocks away. And they came at 6 p.m. on like a Sunday night when the courthouse would be closed, and there's literally no foot traffic in that area at all. And I didn't even find I live there, and obviously like I keep up with these things. I didn't even find out about it until like 2 days later that they were even like in town. And it's like I don't know, like how do you not try to coordinate this to like I don't know, go downtown and do that. I don't care, whatever. Like I probably would have came out just to see a free show, but that was sort of like the whole crux of like the online activism that these people would do. Like you see these like TRS protests if they weren't behind a paywall, if somebody actually managed to snag a photo of it, and it's like five guys out there, no foot traffic, like nothing happening, and you're just like, oh, it's just you almost feel bad in a way. Like they're really trying, but they're just not really smart enough to figure out how to do it. Um, I don't know. The TRS thing was a whole arc. And now, like I said, we have Doomernat like wearing like the little bandana, which I'm sure you've seen that picture. It's like the funniest picture of all time. He like sitting in the back of his mom's trailer with
yeah.
this like bandana, and Sneeko loves him, so that's a really good sign. Which I guess Sneeko turned on you recently too, which was crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Over the World Cup.
Yeah, that was crazy. What a crash out.
That was funny, yeah. I got to see his reaction as well because he did it on stream, and yeah, he did this whole like sympathetic monologue about how he stood with me and he was always good to me and I betrayed him, and you could see on the phone the thing was like me posting a messy edit on a quote tweet of him. he's like, he's like so upset and crashing out. It's like football banter. Like what?
Yeah, it was what's so funny too, because it's like, I mean, again, like you're like you were saying, like you're always like pretty friendly, like you like a little bit of banter, but like you are like one of the nicest dudes in this sphere, I think. And it's like for him to just have such a like crazy freak out over a football edit, it's like, wow, this guy's really not okay. Like this is really something. So yeah, I mean, you really honestly, shame on you for doing that. You should have known better.
Yeah, he was going through it that time. Um, He was meant to take a few weeks break from streaming, wasn't he? He was like talking about going off to Medina for a few weeks or something, but I think he just streamed himself there and came back.
Yeah, I think he's doing a lot better now. Now that he's got the Malcolm X cosplay going, I mean, that's a sign of like a mentally stable person, I think. And I think
Yeah. He
he's
found a new skin suit, so
yeah.
keep him going for another few months.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. It's really healthy. Whenever you see people start dressing up like old historical figures, like, okay, this is good. He's in the right place mentally.
Yeah, the East celeb phenomenon is quite something. I mean, I know we're both East celebs in a way, but certainly attracts a certain personality type, doesn't it?
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, like I said, you've been around almost as long as I have, and it's like to think about all the old names that have like come and gone, and the crash outs. Like it is wild how just like the smallest amount of like cloud or like national attention will like go to somebody's head, or even like the smallest amount of criticism too. It's like so many careers have just came and gone because people can't really like be in the arena, and it certainly draws of a
Yeah.
certain type.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day actually. There was a couple of streamers I was thinking about that were around like 3, 4 years ago, and I was thinking what happened to them. But yeah, they just kind of I remember that they got a little bit of pushback and they just quickly disappeared off the internet. But I mean, 99% of people can't cope with uh the kind of thing you see if you become an online figure. I mean, 99% of people would tap out at like the first sign of abusive comments or comments on your appearance or whatever else, death threats. So, it is a great selector. Like it selects for not very typical people, and that typically kind of falls into like either autists or, kind of like people that just kind of get off on notoriety, kind of like narcissistic types like Spencer. So it's kind of a weird dynamic of two kind of atypical neurological types that kind of dominate a movement, and then yeah, you get all these this strange online drama and crash outs of these weird personalities interacting. But unfortunately, it's not always the best for politics if those are the kinds of people that rise to the top. Is like people that kind of get off on notoriety,
Yeah, I do think I
which
mean, I'm
was kind of the
optimistic.
story of the alt right, right?
Yeah, I mean that really I was like it was like 4 or 5 years of like just I mean it was constant. I basically made a whole show around it, just it was like every week we had content because it was something new. It was like, oh, I got a tape of Chris Cantwell talking about injecting meth between his toes or like it's like it was just it was awesome. It was a really good time. I kind of miss those days in some ways just because of how I mean, obviously we're in a better place now. I think even with all the craziness that's going on, it's like I feel like Nick's in a much better spot. We're able to talk about way more than we used to be for sure, especially with Elon buying X and everything. But at the same time, like I don't know, I kind of am reminiscent of the old days where Matt Heimbach and Matt Parrott are getting into a fist fight in a trailer park. There was something quaint about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing some of it come back though, like who is more of ahead of his time than Patrick Little, right? Like the strategy of like run for elections, like step one, name them, like step two, make an alliance with blacks and Muslims, step three, win. I mean, that's kind of like that is like half of the kind of like JQ online right now. So
Yeah.
he should have stuck around. He could have been. I think he could have been a huge success in this age of Twitter.
Oh, dude, the Dan Bilzerian crowd would love him and like Paul Nellen. Like they would have like rallied around him. He probably would have actually been a lot more successful now because that was the thing when I saw like Casey Push and the reaction to him and then Dan Bilzerian. It's like I've I've been here before. Like time really is a flat circle. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
I'm just waiting for Dan Bilzerian to start flying a blimp in San Francisco Bay at this point. Like we're like two steps away from that. I think. But
yeah.
it is
Patrick
funny.
was just too early.
Yeah, he was. Um, it is funny to think about though. Like, and it really is. It's the same type of people like that kind of follow these people. It's like nothing's really
Mm.
changed. I feel like I've been hearing the term hard power for like 10 years straight now. That like elections don't matter, and we just need to go out there and do something, and that's all that really matters. It's like the critiques have never really evolved or changed at all. It's just that um, it's like every 2 years we just get like a whole like something will happen. We get a whole new wave of like new fags to come in, and you know
Yeah.
we have to sort it
And
out.
the dopamine cycle really drives things as well. Like, because one time, okay, if you're planning a political strategy, it's like, what do you do? Like, you get memberships and you organize activism and you have a get together, and it's like all the rewards are kind of for productive things. But now the reward is just the attention. Like that's what fires off your dopamine. It's just the spectacle, just the attention. And I think it's really nukes some people. Like even so with Joel Davis, like he's like an intellectual guy that was like trying to make this intellectual foundation for the scene and start like journals on philosophy and so on. And I think he's probably on the autism spectrum, but like the kind of dopamine of playing to the radical niche crowd just kind of one shot at him, and it became like kind of an end in itself where you had to kind of you get these people, they become kind of dopamine addicts and they have to keep one up in the spectacle. Even like Lucas Gage, like I think Lucas said this himself, but like a couple of years ago when he was like, it was burning the Talmud and fighting with the pizza delivery drivers and so on. There's just this like spike of dopamine where like your entire kind of career and existence is in the online world. And insofar as people stop paying attention, you're kind of losing relevance and losing yourself. And there's just this kind of one-upsmanship, and unfortunately, like a lot of the kind of antisocial behavior that leads to sometimes is kind of celebrated by the anons. Like it's like Joel is an example. Like, he's chasing the dopamine high, and he's going out doing these increasingly um, counterproductive spectacles, and they're holding signs with like slurs on them and all this kind of insane shit that was obviously going to get them prescribed. But it's like, the Anons are always going to cheer that because it's like, at least he's doing something. So that's why I kind of hate that attitude of like, we have to all get behind anything that's IRL as long as it's IRL. I think there's a bad rule people kind of established of like doing something is always better than do nothing. But it's like, well, actually, like if you're doing something as making a group that's going to get prescribed and get members thrown in jail and bring in like the worst hate speech laws ever and basically make political nationalism impossible in your country. And the payoff was that you got to have people see you like waving a banner with a slur on it. It's like, some of these people, it would just be better if they hadn't become involved in politics in the first place. Unfortunately, like there are a lot of people like that, and you just have to, you know, it's never the incentives are never going to be with it online, but you do the more sensible people just kind of have to isolate and demoralize these people.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like I think with the from the past couple years, like the opening up of the conversation and the sort of lax attitude that it's obviously there's still censorship, but it's definitely opened up, and so it's almost it's created this environment now where people feel like they can go further and further and further. But what people I think sort of fail to realize is that like they're still looking for reasons to shut things down. I mean, the SPLC and the ADL are still obviously uh, you know, looking at everything, and they're gonna continue to push, and they have way more resources than we do. All it's going to take is really one person. I mean, look what happened with Handsome Truth in Florida. Like, I'm not going to say he was like solely responsible for having these sort of like hate crimes laws about like what was it, passing out flyers or anything like that in Florida. Like, I'm not going to blame it all on him, but like to say that he had nothing to do with that, I think would be like irresponsible to say. Like clearly he started to get like national attention because the news was writing about him because he's an insane person going out there and doing these like crazy publicity stunts, and it ended up resulting in making activism harder to do in Florida. So it's like very counterintuitive, and they're always going to be looking for a reason. Like you can never get too comfortable. Like they're always going to be looking for a reason to shut down speech, especially from our side. And I think so many people like this Jake Lang now. I mean, he's going out there with like signs with the N word and putting like bacon on the Quran and stuff. And it's like it's just thrill seeking. It's not like real political activism. Like you're just seeking dopamine and you're just like enjoying the sort of dangerous environment and the dopamine that you're getting from it. You know.
Yeah, and it's rewarded in other ways too. Now, I mean, it's easier than ever to get monetized that kind of thing. You can get gambling deals. You can go on Kick, these kinds of things. Which it's not like I have a problem with that. I mean, people should be able to make money for their free speech. But yeah, it's obviously created incentives. I mean, like to a degree, like politics is always going to be spectacle. Like it is all optics at the end of the day. It's all about how people perceive your side versus the other side. Um, but yeah, I mean, when it becomes dominated by streamers and by internet personalities, the spectacle is going to overtake the politics. And like I said, I think the time we're in now with like Trump won and things are as bad as ever in the U.S. and I think people have a sense of not much change. I do think a lot of people have kind of given up, and it is just kind of trying to capitalize on the slop cycle now.
Hmm.
Um, like is Candace Owens even political? I mean, like you could watch a few of her shows and you'll hear about the Macrons and French arms dealers and the staff at Turning Point USA. But it's kind of remarkable if you watch her. There's really nothing political in her show. I mean, if you think of like some kind of cultural issue that people might be divided one side or the other, like abortion or the transgender thing or any of that, or even like economic stuff. I mean, this is all absent from her show. It's really like it's kind of like a true crime podcast at this point. But it's like to choose your own story. Like she's part of she's the subject and the person covering it, and that seems to be what engages people these days. Same with some of the real life streaming stuff. But yeah, like there's never been more of a disconnect from what's happening in the real world and the kind of spectacle online.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like, and the thing is, it's like the censorship is still around. Like, I mean, like what happened with you? Like, you're being denied entry to the United States now, which is like that's insane to think about. Like clearly, like political,
Yeah,
like,
and I got banned on Stripe and banned from Visa services, placed on the
yeah,
Visa merchant screening list. So like that's the other thing. There's definitely a false sense of security. I think because people, X and Rumble gave us this moment of free speech, but behind the scenes, I know the last year or two, there's been a lot of financial deplatforming happening to people that doesn't get amplified as much. European governments increasingly are looking to bring in legislation to tackle all these platforms. And may well be in a couple of years there's another Democrat administration, and nothing. What has really changed on censorship? It's like, okay, Elon owns X, Rumble got bigger, Substack got bigger, but in terms of like any kind of legislation from two Trump terms that would protect people from unjust censorship, I mean, I don't think there's been anything. So it's like, what is going to stop this cycle repeating again in 3 4 years? I don't really see it.
Yeah. Yeah, people are just getting way too comfortable with it, and that's the problem. And like I said, people are just we're going to continue to chase this sort of like slop cycle, especially considering now that there's not a whole lot going on. There's like uh, this is when people get at their most restless, so they're looking to chase that sort of
Mhm.
dopamine and keep that engagement going. And it's really bad right now. Like, hence why again while we're talking about Richard Spencer, because there's just nothing else really to talk about politically right now. But I mean, I think things will improve a little bit once like the midterms and 28 comes up. But I feel like that's the whole where we're at right now. We're just sort of in this like holding pattern, waiting for something politically to happen to give us something to talk about, something to cover.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Europe. It's like, you have all these kind of pro remigration or anti-immigration parties that are just kind of locked on like maybe 15 to 30% and kind of gate kept out of government by the coalition of leftist parties. And there has been a growth in people talking about this stuff online, but there is a sense of like, okay, what is like the next what's the next big event that's going to push this into the public consciousness? um because I think especially the second Trump term, I think people had really hyped it up into being something, and we're now a few months into the Iran war. Like it feels like populism is kind of exhausting itself a little bit on the left and the right. It almost feels like this is kind of like moving into this kind of post-populist moment. And maybe you can even see that in the miniature, like in people that are taking up these weird like syncretic ideologies and saying I'm not right wing anymore and this kind of thing. I can't help but feel like there's an element of defeatism in there of you've kind of given up on tangible political change, and you kind of just want a little niche ideological community to parlay with there.
Yeah. Well, that or it's like people are gonna like because I kind of predict this with the Dan Blazarian thing. It's like then like I think a lot of these people that were in like the Dan Blazarian like low IQ anti-Semitism, they're gonna point to Dan's campaign because they were already saying like as it was happening that the election was stolen by Israel, which is like total nonsense. But they're now gonna like sort of use this. Well, we tried to do things politically and there's nothing that we can do. So now we just have to resort to, LARPing in a Twitter space for 12 hours about what we would do if we were Hitler and let's form a militia, that sort of thing, and sort of resign themselves. Which honestly, that's a good thing. Those people don't have any, I think, real place in politics. But um, there is that like growing sentiment of people just like being blackpilled, I guess, one way or the other about it. So it's like I don't know. You just gotta wait. Politics is always like it's opportunities. Like who could have predicted like October 7th was going to happen? You know what I mean? Like
Mhm,
who could have predicted that like the ban the ADL thing that you did just like took off the way that it did? It's like you're always like kind of like constantly probing. You know what I mean? But
mhm.
it's like you just have to like find the opportunities that come and just like take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah. I do think this kind of intellectual preening is important as well. Like I said, like people have come into the movement or the online right the last few years with a very kind of basic understanding of things. Like it's weird in a sense. Like one time, like if you got kind of red pilled, the red pill was basically the reality of race. Like like Jews were kind of part of that. It's like, okay, people are different. There's these distinct racial groups. They have interests. Sometimes those interests conflict. Jews are one of those groups. They have a certain interest. This is this minoritarian interest, and this conflicts with white interests in certain ways. This was kind of the dynamic. But now it's like this weird thing where people go straight to like Jews control everything, and like they haven't even. And then it's like they're still like liberals on race, and they're like the Jews are trying to like make us racist. It's like you get these weird like Occupy Wall Street narratives, but like the Jews are at the top now. And it's similar with like the Apollos and stuff as well. It's like people come in through kind of vibes and aesthetics and decide that they're part of like some new atheistic pagan religion that Richard Spencer is going to lead. Like, there's just, I think every so often it's important to just kind of go back to the basics and be like, okay, this is retarded, this is retarded, this is retarded, and we kind of need to stick to some kind of foundation. Like, there's always going to be division on the right, you know, on social issues and religion and so on. But it's like you do kind of need to establish the basics of like, you know, if we don't hold the line on race, for example, like no one is going to, right? It's like Dumernak can go out there and say, you know, well, talking about like Muslims in the UK being a problem is like, that's what the Jews want us to. It's like a Zionist psyop, but it's like, you know, you can surrender that ground and be like, I'm this super high IQ anti-Semite that is like so anti-Semitic that I don't even talk about race because you know when we somehow remove the Jews and we're somehow going to like all peacefully part ways. But it's like, you know, tell that to like the average right winger in the UK that's like furious about grooming gangs, right? Like they're going to go to Tommy Robinson, right? Like you can take this stuff out there, but it doesn't translate off the internet. So like, you know, the movement needs to like nationalism needs to intellectually develop, but you can't lose the foundations. Like a lot of people have this sense of like, oh, a high IQ, an intellectual right, an elite human capital right, and it's like they just look at, you know, it's like, well, who is the elite human capital right now, right? It's the liberals, it's the leftists, it's the people in the university departments, it's you know the scientists that you know engage in you know celebrate DEI and so on. And it's like, yeah, if you just take that to its logical conclusion, I mean, yeah, you can just become a liberal. Like, you know, if you just want to, if you want the pure elite human capital position, you can become like an abundance liberal, sure. But you know, we really need to kind of solidify the foundations, I think.
Yeah, well, because it's so fun. It's like fascinating that a lot of these people are like cheering for these like DSA types just because like they're simply anti-Israel, and it's like so like let me get this straight. Like just you want to like oust like the Jews out of power in America and then replace them with people who hold ideologically almost the same positions as Jewish people, but they're brown. Like that's doesn't really make much
Mhm.
sense to me. Like isn't like the larger criticism of like Jewishness and Jewish power in America is that like what they're very pro immigration, pro open borders, that they are pro multiculturalism, and it's like the you know like you can agree on this one thing, but to sit there and then replace the Jews with people who are ideologically in line with like 90% of things, it just doesn't make much sense to me, you know?
Yeah, it's yeah, I wrote something about that recently, like this left-right alliance thing. But I think it's similar to kind of thinking in terms of like people that have come into politics like purely through a Jewish conspiracy and like with no race angle.
Yeah.
And you know, like these people are saying like, oh, the left-right divide doesn't matter, and it's like, well, yeah, you were a leftist last year. You know, you would say that. Like, it's like, yeah, Ian Carroll thinks like the left isn't so bad. It's like, well, he's like, you know, constitutionally a leftist, like in his beliefs and so on. But yeah, it's just weird, and it's again, it's a total again, it's a very online thing, and it's a total disconnect from how politics works. Of like, well, you know, these factions that hate each other, like you know, the Islamists and the white nationalists and the anti-Semitic third worldists and the DSA, we may not agree on everything, but we'll just unite and remove the elites. And then we'll like, you know, we'll like have a conference on who gets power after that or something, or we'll draw lots on who gets power from there. It's like that's not how politics works. Like it takes years and years to build a political coalition and, you know, put your own media out there, put your own propaganda out there, develop a worldview, appeal to a certain voter base, you know, take over a party that's kind of the natural base of that demographic. And this is just totally divorced from all that. It's like we're all just going to join and remove the elites, you know. And again, it's like the people that have to think about, you know, like Nick has counter signaled this a lot, but it's because it's like the people that have to actually think about, okay, what's a political strategy like 5, 10, 20 years from now? Like it becomes apparent that that's not going to happen anywhere than online. You know, it's like again, like Hassan Piker was like saying, "Oh, great, the Nazi lost his election when Randy Fine beat Dan Bilzerian." So you know the contempt these people have for anything identitarian, including like mentions of Jews, is like next level.
Yeah, and it's and, you know, and I know this is like a trite thing to say, but it's like, I mean, yeah, like they killed Charlie Kirk. Like, I mean, I really thought that that was going to be like a sort of like solidifying moment because even leading up to it, there was this sort of like attitude of like, well, the left and the right isn't real, and it's like, well, then they just straight shot like, Charlie Kirk, who was like the most wholesome Chungus, right wing guy, very inoffensive on the planet, and then it just turned
Mhm.
into this whole true crime drama now, where we're like going out of our way to try to do everything that we can to exonerate the left from any sort of culpability in that. It's like, no, I mean, they were cheering it. I saw people even back home like wearing shirts with like Charlie Kirk's head getting blown off and stuff like that. It's like, there's no
Jeez.
allying with these people, like they're sick.
Yeah. It's it's I think it's just like a lot of it's just like total lack of understanding of the mindset of leftists as well. I mean, I don't know if these people encounter leftists, but it's like any leftist, like the number one thing to them is racism. Like it's racism, racism, racism. It's identitarianism is like the number one thing they see themselves as combating. And there's like a kind of a fake resemblance where it's like, well, we're both anti-Israel, but I mean, listen to any leftist why they're anti-Israel. It's like, it's an apartheid colonial state created by Eastern Europeans that are pretending to be Jewish and stealing the Jewish identity to make people anti-Semitic. And it's like, insofar as they oppose Israel many times, it's just because they see them as the whiter side and the oppressor against the oppressed. And I would say the majority of anti-Israel leftists, like they would see themselves as far more anti, white identitarianism or white racism than they would anything Jewish. I mean, you could even look at like, there was a good example I posted a few weeks back. Like Norman Finkelstein is like the number one pro-Palestine scholar going back decades, and he's also anti-woke, right? He wrote a book against identity politics, and he's supposed to be this kind of more old school anti-woke academic. And he was complaining that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene were becoming anti-Israel because he's like these like racists and conservatives don't belong being anti-Israel. If they really cared about the Palestinians, like they'd care about the black people and the poor people in their own country. So like this is the attitude. Like Tucker will go out there for a year and talk about the plight of Palestinians and actually raise it to a new audience. And he's talking to like the Archbishop in Palestine. It's like reaching a Christian audience that wouldn't have seen that before. It's like it was genuinely like bringing that to a new demographic that Norman Finkelstein would never reach. And then he shits on it because he thinks Tucker's a racist. Like this is, and it's just this pattern just repeats all the way up.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is too, it's like I feel like a lot of the right wingers like they act as if the left is going to like forgive them for their racism in the past if they somehow will like sort of like make these like soft like capitulations, right? Like, well, listen, it's like no, they will never forgive you ever. Like it's not in their ideology. Like they're not Christians, they're not like religious types. Like they don't believe in forgiveness or
Hmm.
like turning a blind eye. Like they're gonna hold, like Sneeko is like a perfect example of this. It's like, do you think like Hassan Piker is ever going to forgive you for like dancing to Erica on your stream and like throwing up Romans? You know what I mean? Like that's never going to happen. Like even if you were to like go on stream and cry, I'm so sorry. It's like it doesn't matter. You're always that person to those people. You know?
Yeah. And Sneeko is a good example too, because I mean, he wasn't even really leftist a few years ago, and he was just doing the anti-Israel thing, and he was kind of, his skin suit that time was the red pill thing,
Mhm.
and he kind of came to the anti-Israel stuff that way. But it's like you could kind of watch the process where very quickly him becoming aware of Zionist influence and becoming anti-Israel actually made him super white because then he started saying like, well, white people are tolerating this and white people are supporting it, and supremacy is wrong because the Israelis are supremacists, and then also white supremacy is like equally bad, and it's actually the same phenomenon. Like you can kind of see the thought process that occurs, and it's just very naive to think that like, someone like Sneeko, like all the incentives are for him to be a leftist, like all the incentives are for him to join with the other brown clown Muslims and say, this is our land. We're entitled to it now. We're going to keep it. We want like a kind of leftist, anti-supremacist, pluralist world where, we're equally accepted in the West, and the West does not like assert itself or question our identity here. And it maps nicely onto obviously Israel shouldn't be doing these things as well. But like all the incentives are for him to embrace leftism. Like the idea that he's going to support white nationalism because of some like moral sensibility, it's obviously not going to happen. And you get that kind of thinking as well. It's like, oh, sometimes people will kind of again, this is I think a problem of like when you're only battling with the right, like you kind of you start taking things for granted that everyone agrees with you on, but it's like, well, in the space of a few years, that can change a lot. And like you'll see like right wingers, you'll see like the Doomer types will be like, oh, if we just take back our countries, all of the Arabs actually want to go home. Like they want to live in their countries, but it's just because we bombed them. And it's like, first of all, that's the leftist narrative. Like there's not Pakistanis and Indians in Britain because Britain was bombing Pakistan. Like there's not like, it's like the biggest demographics in Ireland. It's like Nigerians, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis. It's like, 99 plus percent of migrants in Europe are economic migrants that went there on a commercial flight. And it's like then you have the white nationalists that are saying these are all people that fled Israel's wars. So it's like in a sense you're justifying them being there. But then it's also this totally naive thing that like if we somehow did take power and remove the Jews from power, that like they're all gonna want to move back to Bangladesh. It's like I don't think so. Like these people are like drowning trying to swim from Morocco to Spain so they can go on welfare. Like you think these people are gonna be like, oh great, Israel has been denuclearized and the whites have their country back. Yeah, we'll be happy to return to our ancestral homeland in that population. So it's again, it's just something that's not really thought through outside of an online context.
Yeah, it's like that's what's so fun. I always love when they like make this sort of like argument. Oh, they'll go back eventually. It's like, dude, have you seen Bangladesh? Like, they're not going back. It's like it's not happening.
Yeah, Sneeko is gonna want to go back to Haiti if we if we affirm like a universal anti-Jewish supremacy message. He's gonna realize he belongs in Haiti eating mud cookies.
Honestly, if that were the case, if he would do it, it'd almost be worth it. I would almost embrace it. Like I would be like, okay, you know what? Finally, we can get rid of him once and for all. I don't want to keep you. I don't know if you got. We've been going how long? Like an hour, hour and a half, or something like that. I don't know if you got things to do, but I don't want to keep you too long. I figured I'd try to give you an out if you want to get going, or you can stick around, whatever you want to do.
I'll have to be gone by the top of the hour, but I can stay a few more minutes if you want.
Okay, cool, cool. I know everyone wants us to talk about wrestling. That's typically
Oh
what we
yeah.
end up talking about. Not really. I haven't kept up with it honestly. It's been garbage.
Yeah, Sam. I'm curious what your experience was. I kind of dropped out of following it after was it WrestleMania 40? You know the one where they brought The Rock back
Yeah,
and they ended the Roman Reigns storyline. After that, I lost interest. It's kind of gone to shit with the TKO ownership. I think.
yeah. It was the same for me. It was like right after Wrestle. I mean, I liked WrestleMania 40 well enough. It was fine.
Yeah,
At,
yeah, yeah,
it was good, but it also just felt like a good like ending, kind of. It's like, okay, Cody gets the
yeah.
belt, like he finished the story, and I was just kind of, and it has really been bad since then. I watched the last WrestleMania, was it 42, I think, and I just kind of skimmed. Like I was just like, I
I
don't care
can't even
about.
remember what's on the card for the last one.
It
Yeah,
was
vaguely.
CM Punk and
Yeah, it's been
Roman.
really bad. The TKO thing is terrible. I mean, like I'm like nostalgic for Vince McMahon's WWE. It's like they've got advertisements everywhere. I don't like if you don't watch it, it's hard to even visualize how bad it is. Like the entire ring is covered in advertisements.
Yeah,
When they have a ladder, the ladder has advertisements on it.
the
I think
Slim Jim
they use
tables.
a steel chair as a weapon and it had an ad on it at some point.
Yeah, yeah, they got the
And
Slim
then there's
Jim
like
tables.
there's a huge celebrity crossover. Do you remember when they had Cena like break the record for world championships?
Yeah, yeah, and they had
Travis
like,
Scott was like the centerpiece.
yeah, it was terrible,
It's
dude. It was
like
like,
it's just like it's total guy slop at this point.
yeah, I actually went to what was it, Backlash after 41 because it was Cena and Orton in St. Louis, and I'm like, well, that'll be
Mm.
awesome. Like that, at least that'll be good. So I went. I spent like $500 on like really nice like front row tickets. And then I have to sit there and like fucking jelly rolls coming out. I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Like, why the fuck is like, first off, why is Gunther wrestling like Pat McAfee? Like, you know what I mean? Like this is crazy.
Mm.
And then like I don't know, jelly
Yeah, and
rolls
then
coming out.
they inserted McAfee into the last big WrestleMania storyline because Ari Emanuel is his agent, and he wanted to turn him into the next
The
Sylvester
Stallone.
Stallone.
Yeah.
Like this is like how they make decisions now. It's all very corporate.
Yeah.
Um, I think there was probably some weird background stuff going on there. I mean, you could get into your anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about how they removed Vince, but like there was some very odd stuff happening back then, like TKO Ari Emanuel and this board of Jewish investors took like a large control and share, and then part of the agreement with Vince was like they had to make him um, chairman of the board or CEO or whatever, and he was still going to be booking. And then it was like immediately after that, someone anonymously leaked that he'd been paying off these women and that he'd been doing all these, and then that was the end of Vince. So
Yeah.
I feel like there was like a silent kind of coup happening there.
Yeah, and it's funny with like what was it, the Janelle Grant case, because that's still being like litigated right now. I'm not sure you saw like the
Mm.
recent development, but apparently now, conveniently, she fell in her home and broke her rib and hit her head, and now she's lost her memory. Conveniently
What?
enough, yeah, this is like a real story. Yeah, right. Like I think they have another like trial set coming up, and now she conveniently can't remember anything, and she's having memory problems, which is like very odd. So I think there is
And
something
he's
to
he's
that.
also, I don't know if you followed, he's also in court for defrauding investors because when they were selling the company, I mean, I think part of the reason he was selling it was because there was 2 scandals with him. There was the first one about him paying people off, and then that kinda went away, and he came back on the board, and then there was more details released, and then he finally retired, and that's the one I think TKO probably leaked themselves. Sorry,
Mhm.
Emmanuel could fully take over. Um, but prior to that, when he was deciding who to sell it to, this is what the court case is over now, that they were texting behind the scenes that, he could have sold it for more money to the Saudis and some other group. Actually, I think the US group was the top investor, but he turned down 2 others for a lower bid from TKO because they promised to keep him on the board and let him stay in charge. And then that happened. They bought at a lower price, with all the shady dealings that was happening through signal messages where investors were being defrauded. And then immediately someone leaked stuff to journalists about how he'd been using corporate money to pay off Janelle Grant. So I think it's very, I'm surprised the JQ people haven't really turned their eyes to that one yet. There's a lot of juicy details there.
It is. It's super interesting, and yeah, I don't know, because you are right too. It's like right around that time too is when all the corporate sponsorships started to come in. Because I mean, because like you said, he was in it for a minute. Like, because I remember like because there was like reports on well, Vince was backstage at like what was it 39 WrestleMania 39 or something like that. I think it was the one before like
Yeah.
really, and which was a great WrestleMania, and yeah, then all of a sudden it's like, boom, he's out again because all this the Janelle Grant stuff leaked, the defrauding investors leaked. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and the Ari Emanuel stuff, like no one's drawn the connection to that. Like him trying to. I think the Pat McAfee stuff's like the greatest example. We're gonna make him Sylvester Stallone. Have you heard his new album, by the way, that's come out? It's awful. It's the worst thing you'll ever hear in your
No.
entire life. Yeah, yeah. He dropped an album recently, and it's just fucking dog shit. It's terrible. So
So I mean, so Vince was told by TKO basically that if you take our lower offer, like TKO, which is run by Ari Emanuel and these other Jews, he was told if you take our offer, we'll keep you in charge. All the other investors will remove you because you're bad PR. We'll let you stay in charge of the company. He sold to them, and then someone immediately leaks further details, and they get rid of him. So it's like it seems to me it was some kind of a coup by these guys to get in at a lower price, and they're just going to flog it. They're going to sell it off in the next year or two, I think. And they basically just kind of milked it for what it was worth and put advertisements over everything and jacked up ticket prices everyone's complaining about and kind of they kind of hot shotted the product as well. Like there was like stories building for years. I think that the WrestleMania 39, I think that's probably the best WrestleMania ever, I think. But I
yeah,
think that's when it kind of peaked. But then they kind of hot shotted everything. You've got like multiple big events a year. They're all 2 nights because there's more ticket sales. They're all in arenas because more ticket sales. And it's like very quickly everything diluted, and now it's kind of gone to shit. But they'll flog it off for a much larger price just because they've milked like every possible cent from the fans. So it's kind of a sad reflection. I mean, like Vince was like this. It was like 4 generations of promoters, like Irish Americans, and he had this like privately run thing that he turned into this global brand. I mean, I think he'll be seen as like the Walt Disney of his day. But he gets into trouble, like certain ethical standards we have today, sells it to a Jewish conglomerate, and they just ruin it and destroy his reputation. Like I feel like there's there's a number of lessons here. It's actually quite a drama if someone ever tells it.
Yeah, they I mean, I'm sure you watched the Vince Netflix doc, right? That came out, like, what was it, like, a
Yeah.
year or 2 ago? That was pretty good, but, like, I want, like, a part 2 to, like, cover all of this because it's, like, it's just so interesting. I mean, like, let's be honest, like, Vince wasn't, like, a great guy, you know? Like, he wasn't, like, a you know what I mean? Like, when it came out that it's like, "Oh, he's, like, raping women," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, alright, yeah, it kinda tracks, I guess." Like, I don't de like, usually I will deny a rape case, or, like, I'll be very skeptical when a rape case comes out, but when it came out with him, I'm like, yeah, no, I used to
Yeah.
watch Raw back in the day. I don't doubt that, but
The details
now
the details of the case were insane, though. I mean, it
yeah,
is crazy. Like, I know we talk about the Me Too thing, but it is crazy his life could be ruined for something like that. Because if you read the details, it's like he was years buying her expensive gifts. Like, every time he saw her, he would have some, dress or something worth tens of thousands of dollars, and he was paying her very well for the company and so on. Like, it was clearly a consensual relationship, and basically the argument on her side was basically that after the fact, she felt traumatized by it, and, because he was a powerful man, she didn't feel like she could properly consent. So it's like, are you gonna give back, like, the millions of dollars in gifts he gave you and, the huge salary you earned and the huge, payoff he gave you to stay quiet and all these kinds of things? So it is weird because if that went to court, I think they're settling it out of court now. They've gone into, what do they call, like, arbitration or whatever, where
arbitration,
they
yeah.
discuss, like, an out of court settlement. But I don't think she would have won that case. Like, he was supposedly human trafficking and raping her because after the fact, she felt like it was an exploitative relationship. And yet, his reputation was destroyed. He was removed from his company. They can't even show him on the company he created. So it is still insane that they can just destroy someone's life like that. Even if you're never convicted.
Yeah, it's I mean, the details are nuts, but it's like she said, she could have walked away at any time, you know what I mean? But it's because of this, like, whole, like, sort of feminist slant of, like, there was a power dynamic. It's like there's a power dynamic in every
Yeah,
relationship, you know what I mean? Like, that's always gonna be the case. There's always gonna be a breadwinner in any relationship. Is every man a rapist now because he makes more money than his wife? Like, give me a break, you know? But I don't know. Hopefully, history will be a little kinder to Vince because I'll always love him. You know what I mean? I mean, possibly the greatest villain of all time. Um,
yeah.
you know, and it's just such a tragedy. Like, remember, like, I think it was like shortly after that they would like start blurring him out of like footage, like archival footage, like cutting around
Oh,
him.
really?
Yeah, there was like they would like show stuff like show archives, and they'd like blur his face. I'm like, he built all this. Like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
crazy.
insane. Yeah.
He's getting the full Chris Benoit treatment
Ye
because he was like freaky sexually and
Yeah. Yeah, it was nuts. I think they've, like, loosened up a little bit on it now, but it's, like, it's still just, like, that was an insane period, and, like, even, like, all the wrestlers I honestly, shout out to John Cena. John Cena was, like, the only one to, like, come out like, "No, I'll never, like, talk bad about Vince. He made me. He made my career, and I know he's a complicated guy, but, like, I'll always love him," and, like, "Oh, you know, that's good at least," but they really raked him over the coals. It was bad.
yeah, he is a fascinating character. Yeah, I knew someone that knows someone that works at WWE and was training with them, and it's just like the stories are just insane. I mean, people tell those stories all the time. Like, he sleeps 3 hours a night and, like, gets up and does a 2 hour workout like 3 a.m. or whatever. I mean, he's obviously like juiced to the gills with steroids, right? But it's just as like a case study of a guy who was just totally driven in one direction at one object for his entire life. It's quite something.
Yeah, it's a real shame that the last time we'll ever, like, see him in WWE was when he did that awful stunner with Stone Cold. It was, like, the worst
Oh,
stunner of
right,
all
yeah, yeah.
time. That was, like, one of the last times we'll ever see
I
him.
wonder. I
It's
mean, they might. They're having a WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia next year. Next year is probably too early, but I mean, sure, they've got to put him in the Hall of Fame, surely. I think, like, when he settles the case with Janelle Grant, I think then maybe it'll be clear, but probably not for the next year or two. I guess, like, TKO won't want the bad publicity, but I think in a few years, like, when he's an old man, he's old now, but a few more years, I feel like they've got to give him some kind of send off.
I
It'll
mean,
be
they did
terrible if they don't.
yeah, I mean, they did for Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar was, like, implicated in all that stuff because he was supposedly, like, one of the people that Vince was sex trafficking to, Janelle Grant to or whatever. He was, like, asking her to pee on video or something like that, I can't remember, but they brought Brock
You
back.
wanna see you wanna see her urinate, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, which I
No,
mean,
you like, injecting absurd amounts of testosterone into your system apparently does some strange things, like, when you read Vince's fantasies as well, it's like, "What is going on in this guy's head?"
yeah, I honestly, I was like, how do you even come up with this? Like, how does this even like cross your
Yeah.
brain, dude? Like, that's crazy. He's like pooping on her head or something. I'm like, all right. But then again, you look at the dog food incident with Roman Reigns, you know, it's like, well, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here, actually. Um, so I don't know.
He's a weird, he's always been remarked for having a weird sense of humor, and he's got some weird, like, humiliation thing. He's got a weird, like, sadist, like, humiliation thing. A lot of people attest to that, but, again, he's an interesting character because, like, it would have been good if Netflix did a proper documentary on him because he came from a very abusive household. Like, he said he lived in a trailer with his mother, and he said, like, she had a boyfriend that would beat the shit out of him, and he was dyslexic and had learning problems, and just an interesting case study. Like he's clearly kind of a troubled guy. You know, the fact that like he sleeps 3 hours a night and basically works nonstop in his waking hours, and you know, but by some accounts is quite a traumatized guy. Like doesn't really ever, by all accounts, discuss his childhood or ever talk about these things, but is also clearly like a guy who's just like obsessively uh, kind of driven, and I guess doesn't want to really sit with his own thoughts. But he's an interesting case study. He's kind of like a fucked up personality, but it's also what made him so successful.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, they did like briefly touch on it in the Netflix doc, but he was like very tight-lipped about his like upbringing and
Mm,
stuff. Like you could tell he was like very reserved and he didn't really want to like talk about it, you know. But I mean, I mean, he is like, you know, I know you and I have like said this a lot, but it is true. It's like like just a classic like Trumpian like Americana figure, you know, like he really is like such a
yeah,
like an embodiment of what like the American dream sort of is. And like even wrestling, I think to a certain degree, like reflects a lot of, you know, politics and stuff. That's why I like it I think it's so fascinating to talk about. Because it's like, I mean, and it's like everybody, like even Nick, you know, like you can always kind of tell who's like a wrestling fan and who really like sort of gets the the kayfabe and the nature of it and the spirit of it. Because I think it does bleed really well into politics.
yeah. He was like that last generation of kind of boomer entrepreneurs that still had kind of a still had kind of an old ethic about them. Like he is very he's very like concerned about lineage, and he like valued his Irish American heritage, and you can tell when he talks about like his grandfather that migrated from Galway to New York, that he has this great like reverence for the kind of lineage he's representing, and like very old school masculine values as well. Like I think there was a certain class of kind of white guy, like ethnic entrepreneur like that. Like, you know, like you said, Trumpian, or like, you know, Ted Turner as well, these kind of swashbucklers. And like his life kind of tells that whole story, because how does it end? Like it ends with this company that like his personality was so ingrained in, becoming this corporate structure that's ran by Ari Emanuel, that's part of this consortium that owns UFC, that's now, you know, doing events in Saudi Arabia with prime adverts across the like it became the most corporate thing ever, and he was wiped himself. Like all of the kind of you know, the lineage and identity he really valued kind of was wiped away when he made the financial decisions he did. So yeah, it's a fascinating story. He's got to be like one of the greatest Irish Americans ever, surely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, his story is just like so fascinating. So I don't know. I'll always have love for him. It's like I can't. I don't care. I don't care really what he does. He's just always been like uh just such a fascinating individual. You know. And I think like I know people like probably hate the wrestling talk. I'm sorry. I'd be remiss if it, you know. I feel like this is what we have to talk about every time we talk. It's
Well,
like
I'm trying to make it a little bit anti-Semitic to placate everyone, you know.
yeah, this
Bring it
fucking
back to Ari Emanuel.
this fucking Jew, Ari Emanuel. Am I right, guys? No, I don't know. It's just it's yeah, the Janelle Grant stuff. I just read that the other day, and they just kind of like, talked about it, like her falling and like hitting her head. She's like, oh, I don't remember anything. I was like, yeah, that's convenient. So I thought I'd bring that up with you. But so I
That's
mean,
interesting. I haven't heard that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see where that's gonna go. I mean, you know, he's gonna lose that case, or you know, he's gonna lose a bunch of money on it. So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if he'll ever be like welcome back, unfortunately, but I hope he does. Like I agree with you. Like at least like a Hall of Fame, because I mean
Mhm.
he's the goat. Like there's nobody better than him. Even like aside from him building the company, like he just his work within the WWE, it's like iconic. You
Yeah, I'd
know?
love to see it. I would just love to see a proper telling of his story. I mean, like, now that he's retired, that's one thing he could do is proper long form documentary or a book written by himself, something like that. But it is quite a story, but it's never really properly been told. It's always just the more exaggerated aspects of it, just the business aspects or whatever. But as a character study, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, I'll end the wrestling talk. I know you guys are like spurring out. Okay. So, like, what do you got coming up next? Like, what are you working on next now that you've completely dismantled the Apollonians? So, it's anything coming up with you? Anything new?
Well, working on a social side. I know you may have seen Europa.com. We've been doing like news aggregation, news site. We're looking at turning that into a social site on the kind of Reddit model. It's just in a beta now. We have a team of developers working on it. So I'll hopefully have a better update on that soon. But that's something I've been looking at for down the pike. Apart from that, just publishing on my Substack, keithwoods.com, and people should go there and you can read or listen to the Myth to Power review if you don't want to read 5,000 words. I did do an audio version this time.
I really appreciate you doing that, honestly, because yeah, it was honestly really nice because I was like, oh, there's an audio version, cool. I'll just hit play and just like have my morning coffee and listening and smoking a cig. It was really nice, so I appreciate you doing that. It's the sultry voice of Keith Woods waking me up in the morning. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So
I think I was holding in laughter at a few points. I don't know if you noticed.
yeah, I did.
Even though I'd
Yeah.
read it a couple of times, just going back through it again about how the Terminator is Hitler and Aunt May is Mercury. But when you speak it out loud, it's kind of more ridiculous than when you're reading it. It's like someone actually wrote this, spoke this, believes this. So
Yeah, it's insane. It's such a good article. Like if you haven't read it yet or listened to it, everybody should definitely go check it out. Like I said, we did a little preview of it on my stream the other day when you dropped it, and I was just like, oh, this is too good. People need to go like read this because it's just prime low-cal material, you know. So yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
cool though. I'm excited to see the developments with Europa, and I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. It's always good to talk to you. You know, Just-
Yeah. Well,
I did.
next time we catch up, maybe you'll have 10x your following again.
Maybe I'll have to make it. I'll just have to become even fatter. I think in the next one. You know, I wonder. I wonder if my follower count will match my weight. You know, I need to maybe do an
Yeah.
experiment there. But yeah,
All right, man.
I'd say come to the States and hang out. But unfortunately, you're banned still. It's just really
You'll have to
unfortunate.
sneak
But
me in
yeah,
across the border.
yeah, maybe I can. I'll grow the beard. I'll just I don't know. We'll come up with something. We'll get you like a disguise or like a Mr. Bean
Yeah.
esque sort of
It might
caping.
not be a good look. Maybe
Yeah.
we can all meet in Mexico.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And everybody follow
All right.
Keith and
Take care.